Welcome to the future of payroll and workforce management insights by HR.com, your go-to resource for insights into payroll and workforce management. From navigating compliance and technology trends to exploring the latest in global payroll solutions, we're here to keep you ahead of the curve. Join us as we dive into the forces reshaping payroll and share practical strategies to optimize your workforce management. Let's get started. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this latest episode of Future of Payroll and Workforce Management, a podcast here at HR.com, where I am your host, Brent Skinner, and I do several things here at HR.com, advisory boards, hosting this podcast, writing for the blog, newsletters, all sorts of things. And I've been in the space for a long time, but enough about me. Today's episode is, as always, about my guest. And my guest today is Jim Jensen, who is CEO and founder of Traxxion. And a lot of people watching today will know you, Jim, from many of your past lives. And really happy to have you today.
Well, thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh yeah. Awesome. When you said yes, I was like, score. So anyway,
Well,
um,
anybody knows me knows I like to talk. So
that's awesome. We're and that's what we like to do here on the podcast is talk about HCM. So you've been in the space for a long time, and I like to, and we have a really interesting topic today. We're going to talk about AI, obviously, because who isn't talking about AI? Our title for this is From AI Curiosity to Operational Traction, What Comes Next for Work Tech. And I think we're going to have a lot to say about that. But I'd like to ask all my guests at the outset of these episodes is, what got you into the world of work, and what's your passion? What gets you going every day, ripping and roaring in this space, Jim?
yeah, so I'll try to keep it as short as possible. But anybody else that knows me knows that I'm 6'9", about 280 pounds. I played basketball in university. Obviously, I wasn't good enough to go pro, so I did what most people do. I went into payroll. No, I I went into finance. I was working up on Wall Street for J.P. Morgan Bank, and a little payroll company out of South Florida reached out to me called Ultimate Software. And I like to say that, nobody chooses to go into payroll, it chooses you. But I saw this tremendous opportunity to get in on the ground floor with this company that, there's a saying that there's the only thing that's sure in life is death and taxes. And I thought this was a pretty close second to taxes. And so I got into payroll and HR, and honestly, it's been an unbelievable career and opportunity. And it's that one thing that no matter what happens in the world, no matter what happens in the economy, people have to get paid, and people have to be managed, and people have to be supported. And so that's where I am in HCM.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and a lot of folks in this space, a lot of people watching today probably have fond memories of Ultimate Software, and of course, they later merged with Kronos to become UKG about 5 years ago or so now. Really exciting stuff. And it's funny you mentioned that nobody chooses payroll, payroll chooses you. We have actually done episodes of this podcast in the past this year where more than one person, we talked about how there is really kind of no real career path, defined career path, in academia and that sort of thing for payroll. And that
Yeah.
somebody actually said that. They said, payroll does, you don't choose payroll, payroll chooses you. So we named the podcast episode that. So
Yeah.
it's so funny you said that. Um, now, now tell me a little bit about, tell us a little bit about Traxxion, which is your new venture, Traxxion.AI. And
Yep.
this is going to be a really good segue into our topic today.
Sure. So as most people know, when about 4 years ago, I was on the executive leadership team at Dayforce and had a good run there for 5 or 6 years, and I just decided um, that it was maybe time for me to step out and look to do something else. So I did, and I kind of semi-retired, and or maybe semi-retreaded, not retired, but I semi-retired, and I was primarily focused on working with private equity, venture capital, and investment banks on divestitures, carve outs, moving into new markets, and that was keeping me busy enough that I was okay with that. And everybody kept saying, "Jim, come on, you got to come back in the industry. Like, you're not going to be able to. You're too young to retire, or whatever." Which I don't know about that, but I was flattered. And I always said if I could find something that I could get passionate about, right? I'm a pretty passionate guy if it's something I believe in, that I could get passionate about that would move the dial and make a difference in the industry. I didn't want to be another learning management system or recruiting system or whatever. There had to be a blue ocean there where there was an opportunity that I would potentially lace my cleats back up and get back in the industry. And then, as luck would have it, with we all know WFM is the most complicated part of all human capital management, followed closely by payroll, right? The
Mhm.
two that don't get the they get the least amount of respect, but the most critical.
Yeah.
um, they're really complicated, and all you have to do is look at how many HR vendors there are, how few payroll vendors there are, and how few WFM vendors there are. Good ones, anyhow. And so I'm looking at this, and there's this consolidation taking place, right? Kronos, the most widely partnered time and attendance solution on the market, merges with Ultimate. Now they're a competitor to everybody they're partnered with. Dayforce started off as a WFM solution, builds out a full HCM suite. Nobody's going to partner with them really for WFM. Swipe Clock gets acquired by Iris. Workforce Software gets acquired by ADP. And it was like this parting of the seas. And there's this opportunity for a meaningful mid-market and enterprise WFM solution that is built on current technology and can solve for those challenges. And when you look at the old guard, Dayforce, the most current technology stack, it's already this year 15 years old. If you look at Dimension or UKG Pro, it's 20 plus years old with a prettier face on it, but it's
Mhm.
still, there's a lot of functional debt and technical debt in those products. And so we just saw an opportunity to create a product that was on contemporary technology that could seamlessly integrate in with other solutions that focused on getting punch data right, right? I saw a recent study that said that 80% of all payroll errors can be traced back to bad time collection. And
Well,
so we thought there was a great opportunity there, and so that's what we did.
yeah, it's really interesting. It's there's so I've noticed this in the work that first of all, you're right, workforce management, obviously the most complicated area of HCM, and along with payroll sort of getting the least, as Rodney Dangerfield would say, respect, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and maybe that's changing. There's there is an interesting sort of for the longest time we're working towards sort of end-to-end solutions, and this might be a good segue to what we're going to talk
Mhm.
about, but I just want to get it
Yeah.
out there anyways. We
Yeah.
talked about end-to-end solutions for the longest time. It seemed for some reason it just became sort of the North Star. We have to create a full suite for HCM from one vendor, blah blah blah. And sure, it was a worthy goal. I mean, it was an interesting sort of probably I'm not a computer coder, but it was probably really interesting for the
Mhm.
various companies sort of working to kind of achieve that, right? But what we've seen is just a persistence of demand and, frankly, need for specialized point
Mhm.
solutions. And talent acquisition has been one of those areas, right?
Yep.
And payroll is another, and workforce management is another one.
Yep. I think you're absolutely right. And I think that, look, I've been in this world for 30 plus years, 35 years. And at Ultimate, we sold a single unified solution end to end. At Dayforce, same thing, single solution end to end. And there was certainly value in that. And the idea is that it's, one throat to choke, one back to pat. And in the mid market, that was really successful. Probably 85% of all businesses were full product suite sales.
Mhm.
In the enterprise, it was not. It was more best of breed, bespoke solutions because they had the resources to be able to manage and aggregate the data from maybe I'm using Workday as my HCM solution. I'm using UKG for my gross to net. I'm using Dayforce for time. I'm using iCIMS for recruitment and onboarding. And the enterprise could do that. Well, now that's not reserved just for the larger enterprise customers. Now, down in the mid market, because of technology where it is now, I should be able to buy a best of breed workforce management system and the best of breed gross to net engine and the best of breed HR. And they should theoretically all communicate together. I use a weak example, but I use the example of stereo equipment. I can buy different brands of speakers and turntable and stereo head and power conditioner, and it all plugs together and works as if it's all the same brand. And that's really the utopia because every vendor is really good at least one piece of what they do. If
Mhm.
you candidly, if you look at Workday, they're really good at global HR. Maybe not as good at payroll, not as good at WFM, not as good as learning. They have those to check the box and round out the offering, but if I really want the best, I'm going to go and select individual bespoke solutions where 100% of their focus is on that one feature, and then they work to make sure it can seamlessly integrate with other solutions.
So so that this is a segue I've been looking for. So one of the questions that I have for you today is, so first the question is, where do you see the biggest gap today between AI experimentation and operational value inside organizations? And I guess sort of a corollary to that in my head anyway, and I could be completely wrong, let's be honest. But what I'm seeing there is AI sort of, helping with that, the ability to sort of put an amalgamation of bespoke solutions together?
Well, I think it is, but it's all how you handle the data on the back end and how you handle the implementation of it. And I think, leaders tend to frame AI agents as like cheaper humans or things to do very specific strengths and limits and all. And I think if we can get away from that and look at it more globally, because what happens is now is most AI projects within organizations and within solutions are very bespoke. They're kind of experimentations and stuff rather than kind of a more encompassing look at that. And so at the end of the day, if you redefine work as decisions and not tasks. Like you've got decision making under constraints, right? So is this punch valid? Does the schedule violate labor rules? Can we approve this exception without risk? Who needs to be notified now? Right? But if we can get the AI agents to collaborate on that, like to own repeatable rules heavy decisions, and I think it's like coding. Coding is very binary. It's option A or option B. It's rule one or true or false, right? It's very binary. And when you can clearly define those rules, AI can be phenomenal for that, right? To escalate ambiguous or high risk cases, to continually monitor conditions that humans can't watch 24/7, right? It's great for doing that kind of stuff. Where it struggles and you have to have humans involved is when you get into policy interpretation or edge cases or final authority on, regulated outcomes. Like our philosophy is we're never going to use AI to make decisions where accountability has to be there. I can't hold an AI agent accountable. And so we like to call it assistive intelligence. It can comb through all the data. It can spot trends and irregularities and those sort of things and make me aware of what's going on in my data and in my systems and guide me through making my decision. But at the end of the day, I have to be accountable for that and make that decision.
It's interesting, right? You can't take an AI agent to court, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. What's funny is that, you talk about sort of, you know, the different uses for agentic AI, where you would use or AI sort of in assistive decision making, but not sort of for accountability related things, right? Something that needs to be, you know, bam, has to be right at the end of the day, right? You use humans for that. And that, I like that philosophy. It reminds me of a conversation I had with a fellow earlier this year. It's on the podcast where we talked about um, AI and payroll.
Mhm.
Just to talk about payroll for a moment now, right? Apparently, we all know that AI does what's called hallucinating. Well, kinda
Yes.
it'll make up answers
Yep.
sometimes. And I learned that that is actually a feature, not a bug. That is not like a glitch or a mistake that the AI is doing. It's actually part of how the way it learns is it's looking for that, its creators, probably the AI itself now to get a little bit dystopian Skynet here, but at some point, it's actually kind of looking for us to correct it or to kind of or maybe to provide feedback, right?
Yeah.
And so so it and part of that is that the AI is not designed to produce a clear, concrete, black or white correct answer necessarily to things. That's why LLMs are so useful, right, for writing this kind of stuff because there's a lot of sort of leeway in that sort of thing. So that's a big long way of saying that, you know, to leave payroll to AI to sort of produce, what's been called autonomous payroll is that might first of all, what might be driving autonomous payroll is something other than AI, right? A.
Mhm.
But B also that would be a bad or an ill-advised sort of application for AI. But when you talk about, enhancing the ESS experience for the
Mhm.
employee when it comes to payroll, helping them understand their paycheck better, these sorts of things, um,
Yeah.
that's a great use for AI. So I just wanted to get that out there is that, that's what you're saying is I've been hearing it elsewhere as well.
Yeah, and I think we have to understand what we're doing. AI, it's machine learning and artificial intelligence and all, but at the end of the day, you're teaching it what the rules are, and then it operates within those rules. So if you teach it flawed information, it's going to come up with flawed, right? We all remember back a couple of years ago, it was Google's AI engine when it was asked to produce images of famous people in history, they were all uh, people of color. George
Right.
Washington was generated as a person of color. Well, we obviously know that wasn't right,
Yeah.
but there was a bias or misinformation introduced, and they lost $95 billion in valuation overnight as a result of that. Obviously, that's been resolved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that um, kind of like where the rules are emphatic, AI can be emphatic. Where it's not, it's going to take some liberties, and we have to train it and coach it and get it through that. So, but the areas where if you're using instead of like jobs, it's more autonomy tiers. Like, what are the things that AI can do? What obviously observe is one where it can monitor and report information, recommend, it can look at what's taking place, and we used to call it prescriptive analytics, right? It can recommend actions maybe that should be taken. It can execute on things with guardrails if it's clearly defined, and then it can escalate things and or hand it off to somebody. I think where people get into problems, and this is why I think everybody says, "Oh, AI is gonna take everybody's jobs." I don't think it will. I think it's like it's this assistant that can guide me to help me make decisions, and if I know what I'm doing and I know my business, I can tell whether it is hallucinating, or I can tell if what it's doing is wrong, and I can also glean from it what's right. I think the rub that we're having now with people, and some, you know, college students are finding this out, is when they don't know what the AI is producing, like they don't understand that, they take it at face value and they run with it, and it could potentially be wrong. There could be cases where it's not right. So I think you still have to have a thorough knowledge or understanding of what it is you're doing, what payroll should be doing, right? Because again, it's to automate and help you and assist you in what you're doing in your role.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, in the time we have left, I want to ask you how does AI make scheduling better? How does it help with workforce management, maybe with other areas of WFM, time and attendance tracking, these sorts of things.
Well, some of the basic foundational things it can do is like analyzing demand patterns, right? Historical volumes, seasonality, weather events. I have a friend of mine who is the COO at Tron, the golf course management company. And they do all their planning based off of Farmer's Almanac, weather predictions, and things like that.
Mm.
So it can do things like that. It can match labor supply with the demand in real time. It can, like balance business needs with employee preferences and constraints, all of those clearly defined in the system. It can match that up. It can if I'm trying to define a shift for, a medical organization where I need two RNs and I need an LPN and I need a this, it can look at qualifications and can suggest what the makeup of that team should look like, or that shift, what that staffing should look like. It can predict hourly staffing needs for overtime and understaffing and potential labor law violations, flag overtime challenges. For the frontline worker, imagine that I pick up my phone and I say, hey, Traxxion, when am I scheduled to work next? And it says, oh, you're scheduled Friday from noon to 4. Oh, I've got a conflict. Who else could cover my shift for me? And it can automate putting my shift out to bid. Or, hey, Traxxion, I'd like to pick up another shift this week. Are there any available I can grab that won't put me into overtime or something of that nature? So for the front end, the frontline worker, I think it's to just make it more conversational and interacting with the system to figure out when I work and when I might be able to pick up additional shifts, or what some conflicts I might have, how much have I made so far, things like that. And the idea is to just automate as much of that as possible. In On the administration side, it's letting it take a crack at creating an optimized schedule, labor optimization, making sure I have the right people in the seats for that particular shift, the makeup of skills and licenses and responsibilities and that sort of thing.
Oh, it's really interesting, and it's yeah, I think WFM has a bright future.
Absolutely, I think so too.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
I do too, and it's funny because you just don't see a lot of people coming into payroll, and you
Yeah,
don't see a lot of people technology, I mean,
yeah.
building WFM solutions or building payroll solutions, because it's really hard, and it's stuff that matters. And we always talk about, from a WFM standpoint, we talk about zero to gross. I don't care what you're using for your gross to net engine. You could have the best gross to net engine in the world. If your zero to gross is flawed or wrong or giving you the wrong information, it's going to be wrong in gross to net. If we can make sure that your zero to gross is right, then it takes more pressure off of the gross to net engine, and it ensures that moving down that pike, that the information is going to be correct. If this is wrong, everything downstream is going to be wrong.
Right, right, right. So important, so imperative to get those core functionalities,
Yep.
systems absolutely on point. Jim, we could talk about this all day. I'm
Yeah.
certain of it, but we've reached the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for being a guest today, Jim.
It's my pleasure, Brent. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Workforce Management and Payroll Insights by HR.com. We hope today's episode brought you valuable insights and fresh perspectives on the future of payroll and workforce management. Be sure to check out more episodes and explore resources at HR.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep innovating and making a difference in the world of payroll and workforce management.